Hello CraftDee family, and welcome to another tutorial by She's So CraftDee. For today's DIY project, so we're going to be creating some beautiful home decor pieces using Dollar Tree items. Now these projects have been finished with some rich wood, some black, and touches of gold, but you can customize these in whatever colors that you love. Now as always, the projects I create have a complete supply list in the description box, so you can easily use it for reference as you gather up your supplies. Now before we start, I have to say hey to all of my subscribers, and if you are a new visitor to my channel today, I hope you consider subscribing as well and stick around to enjoy these crafts and see all the different ways that you can display these in your space. So now, let's just jump right into the projects. Now this project is a wood wall planter. We're going to need one of these Hexagon box trays from the Dollar Tree Plus section for $3, or you can find these at the Family Dollar as well. We're also going to need one of these natural finish signs from the Dollar Tree. And we're going to need some craft sticks, and these are going to be optional for this project. So we're going to start off with that wood board and your hexagon sign. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cover half of that hexagon sign, the bottom half. So I'm going to lay it face down or face up, it doesn't matter, on top of the board and trace the bottom half of the sign onto that natural board. Now we're going to be cutting this out, and to do this all you need is a sharp utility blade, and you could get these from the Dollar Tree. Now all we're going to do is follow our line very slowly and trace it on about 2 or 3 times, and it should break this piece apart really easily. Now once you make that last cut and separate it, here is your bottom half of your little hexagon tray, and now I'm going to do a quick test fit, and everything looks good. Now you can leave this board natural and just hot glue it on as it is, and that will complete that project. But I decided to give this front piece a little more of a plank look, and this is where I'm going to be using some of these craft sticks I picked up from the Home Depot for $1.49. Now I'm just going to lay these across in a vertical stick pattern, and I'm going to start off in the middle so they will be placed nice and even. I'm just going to apply my wood hot glue right down the center and lay my sticks on each side all the way across. Now you do want them to overlap the edges as shown here, because we will be going back and trimming those off. So again, take your utility blade and then just drag it along the edge of your little cutout 2 or 3 times, and it should pop those sticks right off. Just finish this all the way around your piece, and here is your beautiful wood plank front for your hexagon planter box. So again, I'm just making sure that everything fits and everything looks good to go. So now we're going to end up staining our pieces, and today I'm going to be using my Waverly Antique Wax for this, and also I'm using just a little bit of water to dilute everything out. So I'm going to go ahead and wet my rag first and then use some of that antique wax. Now the water just helps me spread it just a little bit more even, and it also stretches your product. So I'm just going to stain the entire inside of that hexagon box first, and then I'm going to stain the bottom edge of that wood hexagon box. So that'll be the part exposed, but leave the bottom half unstained, because that's where you'll be gluing your little plank on. So I'm removing the sticker on the back, and I'm going to stain the back and the sides of that hexagon, and then staining that front plank piece as well. Now there's no need to stain the back of that front plank piece, because that won't be seen in the project. So now all we have to do is adhere it to our little hexagon. So I'm running a bead of my wood hot glue, or you could use wood glue, to the bottom half and placing my plank piece right on top and securing it. And once that's secure, you want to let the entire piece sit to dry. Now here's my piece all nice and dry, and now what I'm going to do is add a hanger. So I'm using some of these black beads that I had on hand, and these were repurposed from some clearance garland from Walmart last year. All their beaded garland went on clearance, and so I just cut it off the strand and I use them in projects. So I'm taking a piece of jute twine and I'm going to string on about 16 of these beads onto the string for my hanger. Now you do want to make sure you use an even number of beads on your hanger in order for this to display correctly. So this is where it'll hang at the top edge, and we're going to go ahead and tie a knot so the beads won't shift, but we're going to leave about 1.5 inch tail on each end. So I'm going to run a thin bead of glue along that back edge and place that 1.5 inch piece of jute twine in it, just making sure it's laying smoothly in there, and then repeating that on the other side, and this is what it looks like. Now to add a little bit more reinforcement to that attachment, I am taking my staple gun and I'm going to put 2 staples along that jute twine on each side on the back there, and this will just make sure that that will not detach from your hanger. And here it is, all ready to go. And now all you have to do is decorate. You could place anything that you like, and I'm going to be using a variety of little faux succulents for my piece. And here it is, you guys. It's now hanging up, decorated, and on display. Now I have added a bunch of faux succulents to my box, and I just love this color combination. Now you don't have to just use succulents, you can add any type of greenery or florals that you love. And I'm so glad I chose to go with the wood sticks to make that slat design. You all have to let me know what you think of this project in the comments below. Now this project features some stylish modern vases. So we're going to need 2 of these unique style vases that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm so excited to craft with these. So the first thing I'm going to do is take both of the vases, give them a nice good clean with rubbing alcohol, and then take them out and give them 2 coats of this Krylon satin spray paint. Now after they dry, here is the finished vases. I just love how this spray paint leaves this finish. It looks so nice. Now with the first vase, we are going to do a technique and we are going to add some beaded trim. So I cut some strips of painter's tape really thin to use on my project. Now in order to get the placement correctly, what I'm going to do is at the top edge, I'm just taking one of these little chalk markers and I'm going to mark it in 3 even sections at the top. And then I'm going to take that thin piece of painter's tape that I cut and I'm going to start wrapping it around the jar in a diagonal pattern, almost like it's swirling around the jar. Now I'm just kind of eyeballing this, and now this first piece will determine how the rest of your pieces lay. So you just want to just lay it down to detach or replace it how you want to. This is the purpose of using the painter's tape. It won't damage the finish. And once you get it just how you like it, go ahead and trim off all of that excess tape at the bottom. So now that your tape has found its landing place at the bottom, we are going to take that first place marking where that tape landed as the first mark to make this end 3 equal sections as well. And here are those 3 equal sections on the bottom. Now we can use this as a guide when we add our additional 2 pieces of thin strips of tape. So we're going to line this up with that next little marking at the top and wrap it around in that swirl type pattern, matching it up with that bottom marking the same way we did for the first wrap around. And then repeat this for your third piece as well. Now here are all 3 pieces of tape on your vase, and these will provide the guides when we add our accent. Now to add our accent, I am using some of these brown beads I'm repurposing from clearance Christmas garland. You can use any beads that you want to. Now if you want to use the loose beads, you can definitely add them one at a time up the jar, but I found that adding them on a string makes it so much straighter and neater. So this is where I'm going to take some jute twine and I'm going to string on beads to make sure it's nice and neat. Now, in retrospect, to match the jar, I would actually use brown or the black yarn actually to string these on, but if you have jute twine, that's fine. I do have a fix at the end of this project. So now that we have several beads strung on that will fit one of the swirls, we are going to align it along the painter's tape. Now I'm going to be using my wood hot glue on high temperature, which has pretty good hold, but definitely consider some E6000 or Gorilla Glue if you want a more long-term permanent hold. So I'm going to apply a bead of this glue along the side of that paint strip. You don't want to place it on top and you don't want it to touch. We're just using that tape as a guide. So I put a 5 or 6 inch strip of that wood hot glue along the vase, and then I'm going to hold that beaded strand really taut and lay it in that glue, applying a little pressure, about 5 or 6 seconds until it starts to bond. Press it down in there, and then when it is bonded, you can add the remainder of the length of that glue and hold that bead into that glue as well the same way. So here's our first strand all in place along that strip of painter's tape, and you can see we have a little bit excess of string hanging off, so we're going to cut that off, leaving about 1 inch on that bottom edge. Now we are going to repeat this for the 2 additional strips around the vase. And here are all 3 strands of the beads on the vase using that same technique. I'm loving how this is looking. So now we could just go ahead and remove all of that painter's tape. It should peel off nice and easily since it should not have any glue on the tape. And now all of the tape is removed, and now we just have those beautiful beads on our vase. Now we do have some strings at the top. Now originally I thought of removing the strings completely since the beads are glued down, but this string actually provides as some support for the beads in the long term. So I'm just adding a little hot glue inside of the vase and pressing that string down inside of that edge. I'm going to do that at the top edge all along the outside until all 3 are secured inside the vase. And then I'm going to flip it over. We want to do the same thing for the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and remove that sticker first and then hot glue those strings down as well along the bottom of the vase. Now once those are all glued down, we are going to cover that up. I'm using a round circle piece of craft foam that I had, or you can use some felt. I just cut it in a circle, and I'm going to apply some more of that hot glue along the bottom edge. And once I get that done, I'm going to place it right on top of the bottom. Now this hides all of the loose strings and gives it a nice clean finish on the bottom of your vase. You just press that firmly until that glue adheres. Now on the top of the vase, we can see what this looks like. Now if you love that natural jute finish, you could keep it as is, but I did want my jute twine to blend into the color of my vase, so I'm using some black acrylic paint and just dabbing it on with a fine tipped paintbrush. Again, when I mentioned earlier you should use black yarn, you wouldn't have to do this step if you use the black yarn, or you could keep it natural. It's all up to you, but I'm just going to go ahead and touch it up really quick with my black acrylic paint. And here is what it looks like, you guys. You just let this dry and then you can decorate it. And here you have it, you guys, a unique swirl bead and glass vase for your decor. Now I used some tall Dollar Tree fern branches inside to accent this beautiful piece. And this bead swirling looks so awesome, and it really gives it a mix of modern and boho style. Now you can use half beads as well, or you could choose any color you like for this decor to your preference. And I hope that you guys let me know what you think and how you would style this in your home. Now for the other vase, what we're going to do is give it a metallic accent. Now some of the items in this DIY will have a metallic gold accent, so this will blend into the rest of the decor. Now I'm going to use some of this gold acrylic paint that I have by Folk Art, and I'm going to use a couple of chip brushes that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Now I want to have this vase have like an ombre type of look. So what I'm going to do with my chip brush is first apply a really thick and solid coat of that gold color near the bottom, and you want to make this band maybe about an inch thick or so. You could do it according to your preference. And then you just want to continue to add layers going up the vase, just tapping with your different chip brushes and blending that in. And what it will do eventually is as you grow up higher into the vase, it'll give it a really beautiful texture and ombre pattern. Now once you reach near the top where you really want it to fade into that ombre, you just want to lightly dab and then go back near the bottom and add more paint. So you can see I'm lightly tapping around the top to give it that final ombre look. And look, you guys, this just looks so amazing, so effortless. You let this dry and all you have to do is decorate with it. And that is all you have to do to complete this version of the vase. Now I have seen vases with a similar style on like restorative hardware for an insane price, but I love that I was able to make one on the cheap for only a few bucks. Now I really do hope that you guys love this version of the vase as much as I do. Now this project is a pair of metal cage sconces. Now we're going to need another one of these natural finish signs from the Dollar Tree. And we're going to need 2 of these geometric shaped metal cage pieces from the Dollar Tree in the decor section. And we're also going to need 2 4-inch pieces cut from a wood garden stake that I got from Dollar General for $1, or you can assemble a piece like this with tumbling tower blocks. Now what we're going to do is start off with our little sign piece, and we need to cut it down. So I'm taking my utility blade and I'm first off going to cut that decorative cutout at the top off of this piece so we have one solid plank to work with. So now what I want to do is to mark the center of the remainder of this board, and I'm going to divide it down the middle. Now once I divide it down the middle, I'm just going to cut it with my blade a few times and make sure those edges are nice and trimmed off even. Now if one piece is longer than the other slightly, go ahead and mark that and then trim off all of the little excess. So now we have 2 nice even boards to work with for our project. Now next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark down approximately 1.5 inches from the top, and then we want to make sure that dot is in the center. So I'm making sure it's nice and center by putting a plus mark there, making sure that I know that it's right exactly in the center so our project will hang correctly. Now we will need to drill a hole through these pieces, so I'm going to go ahead and stack both pieces together, making sure that the edges are lined up. And then I'm going to take my drill. I think I have a 7/64 inch drill bit in my drill here, and I'm going to drill through both boards at once, just making sure we have that hole go through both pieces. And now we have the hole at the same spot on both boards. So now we're going to work with those little 4-inch wood stake pieces, or if you assemble these from tumbling tower blocks, we're going to work with those as well. What we're going to do is drill a hole down the center of one end of that as well. We're going to go down maybe about 3/4 of an inch with our drill bit. And here are both of our pieces with the hole on the end. So now we have our 2 wood planks. We're going to flip them over to the back side, and I'm going to go ahead and add the hangers before I start adding any embellishments. So what I'm going to do is cut a piece of jute twine with knots tied on each end, and I'm going to place it between the hole and the top edge on the back of the plank. Now to secure it in place, I am using a heaping amount of that wood hot glue. You just want to make sure you sit the knot of that jute twine in the center of that hot glue and place a little bit of hot glue on top of the knot. Now I'm using just my thumbnail to kind of stretch it out and make sure that that dries really taut. And then I'm going to take a couple pieces of craft paper and cover up those knots. I just think that this gives it a really finished touch. It looks so professional on the back, so I love to cover those up, and it also adds a little bit more reinforcement. Now this is what it looks like. Just repeat this for your other board until both of your boards have the hanging strings secured in place. So now that that's done, we are ready to go ahead and stain our wood pieces. So I'm gonna again use my Waverly Antique Wax with a little bit of water to kind of dilute out the mixture. So with a moist towel, I am just going to go ahead and grab some of that wax, and I want to evenly apply it on the top of the boards. You do want to make sure you get the entire top and also those edges as well. Now we're going to repeat this for both of the boards until they are nice and stained, and here they are with a nice even coat of that antique wax. Now just let these sit to completely dry. And now we're going to go ahead and going to paint those wood pieces, and I'm just going to use some black acrylic paint for this. This piece will have a black accent, so all we're going to do is paint the entire piece of these 2 4-inch wood pieces. We're going to make sure we get all the sides, including the ends, and there's no need to paint the end with the hole drilled in it, but we do want to make sure all the other edges have a nice good coat of this black acrylic paint. And here are both pieces all painted. Now sit them up and let them completely dry as well. All right, all of our pieces are now dry, and we can start working on the assembly. Now what I'm also going to be using for this 4-inch piece are these little hooks. Now these are called little plant hooks. You can get them from any hardware store. They're fairly inexpensive. You can get them in a 10-pack for maybe a couple of bucks, but I'm going to be using that to hold up our sconce pieces, so I grabbed some of those. Now for our wood pieces, we are going to mark down 1 inch from the edge that does not have the hole screwed on the end. We want to make a little mark with our pencil. Now the purpose of adding the mark to both of these pieces 1 inch down is to make a tiny pilot hole to put those plant hooks in. This wood for the stake is a harder wood, so we need to make a little pilot hole to prevent it from splitting when we add our hooks. All right, so now that we have that marking, I am taking my drill. Now I'm only going to be drilling in about halfway through. You should put it on a board and not hold it like I did, but definitely you want to be careful doing this. Do it on a board and just drill in halfway through each one of these pieces. And now all we have to do is take our little plant hooks and just hand screw them into that little pilot hole. They should go in pretty easily now, and here is what it should look like. We're going to repeat that for your other one, and now we have both of our pieces with our hooks in place. So to affix our little hook assembly to our boards, I'm going to be using some number 6 1-inch wood screws. Now to affix it to the board, you want to make sure the hole is aligned on each piece. Now what you should do is actually start applying the screw through the back of the board first, where it just lines up, just peeks through the edge, and therefore you can align the holes a lot easier. But here I'm just kind of eyeballing it, making sure those holes lined up, but that would be the easier way to put the screw in just a little bit. Now this hot glue on here is just to temporarily hold it in place until you get everything aligned. Now once it is aligned, then you can take your screw and screw it in through the back of the board and go all the way through that wood piece on the front. Now this will make everything super secure with the screw, and you don't have to worry about it breaking apart with just the use of hot glue. So now here are both of our pieces with our little hangers all affixed and ready to go. So now we're going to grab our geometric pieces. Now I chose this design because I thought it was the most unique and fun, but they do have these in circle styles, diamond styles, so many different styles you could choose from, and all of those will work for this project. Now as you can see, these hang on those hooks perfectly, you guys. They dangle just slightly, but you can add these on for a unique look. Now to decorate these, you can leave them as is, or I'm going to add some faux succulents. You can even add some candle operated votive or tea light candles as well for a light accent. There's so many different ways that you could decorate these, but you guys, it's all up to you and what you prefer for your space. You just make it your own. Now here is the version with the little tea light. If you want to sit the little tea light in there, that bottom edge will sit that tea light. The little metal rings will hold it in place while it's hanging. And oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, here is how amazing these turned out. Now this simple modern piece has clean lines and reminds me so much of a modern industrial style decor piece. And it's so hard to believe that these were created from Dollar Tree items, but they look so sophisticated. I hope you guys give this really easy project a try. Now this project are for decorative glass jars. Now we're going to need 2 of these glass jar containers with lids from the Dollar Tree. Now we are going to be painting these, but do not paint or do not clean these with rubbing alcohol. It ruins the finish and causes a huge mess. So make sure you just clean with soap and water. Trust me, it'll save you a lot of headaches. So once your jars are nice and clean, you can go ahead and give them 2 coats of this Krylon satin spray paint in black. Now here are both of my jars all nice and painted. I love how clean, crisp, and smooth these look with the paint. So the first jar we're going to be working on is this little round one with the lid. I think this is super cute, and we're just going to do a little update with this. Now again, I'm going to be using those brown beads I'm repurposing from some Christmas garland, and I'm going to add them to a piece of jute twine. Now to wrap it around these jars, it took about maybe 20 to 22 beads. So keep that in mind if you want to make this project. I'm just going to wrap that many around it and then do a test fit around the top of the jar just to make sure that they fit and the ends will meet nice and snug. Now once you determine that that fits, go ahead and put a really tight double knot at the end of that jute twine. And once that's nice and tight, you can go ahead and trim down those ends, and now you have a beaded round that you could just sit over that top lip of this little jar. Now it fits so nice and snug. There's no need to put any hot glue or anything. You just add the lid, and this jar is really completes the look. I just think it's so cute the way it is. And the thing is you could remove and replace it just in case you want to change out the beading or change out the color. It's all up to you. And now you just add it to a shelf, your table, your desk, or wherever you would love to display it. Now I did add a cute little faux succulent from Dollar Tree to it as like a little accent to give it a little green to this design. Now I do love all the details and the glass, and adding those little beads was just such a really cute touch to this jar as well. Well, let me know in the comments what you think of this cute little project. Now for the second glass jar, we are going to be customizing this as well. And since I have gold accents in other parts of these DIYs, I'm going to be using the gold accent with my stamping technique. Now, of course, I love to do this by using a repurposed sanding sponge. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my Folk Art metallic gold paint. So what I want to do is highlight all of those little ridges on this little jar. So all I'm going to do is just paint on some of that gold paint onto the surface of my old sanding sponge. Now, once you get a nice generous amount on there, you could start to either roll the sponge or tap the sponge on all of that texture. And what will happen is just the texture will pick up that paint without running into the grooves. So those little grooves and texture will be highlighted with this beautiful paint color. And you just want to keep reapplying that paint until you get the desired look that you want. And this looks perfect with that modern, rustic kind of antique look. So now that we've done the jar base, we're going to do the lid as well. Now it's a smaller surface, so we are just going to be using a part of our sponge for this. So I'm going to start by adding the gold just at that top edge of the sponge as shown here. Now once I get an amount added there, you also want to add a little bit to the sides. Now this will help get into all of those little nooks and crannies and grooves on that little lid piece. And then you just want to gently start to tap and add all of that paint in there by using that flat surface and the end piece of that sponge, highlighting all that beautiful texture in the lid. And once you complete this all the way around, this is that texture and it matches the body of the little container. So once you do that, now all you have to do is go around that outside edge. And again, you can tap or roll your sponge just by adding little bits of that paint right back on it. As soon as you get a thin layer, you can add some more on and then just tap it around. It highlights that so beautifully. And now when you add it to the jar, it looks so cute. You just want to allow this to completely dry. And there's so many different ways and uses that you could use this jar with this really pretty look. And that's all you need to turn that bubblegum pink jar into a really modern antique looking jar to decorate with. Now I've added some greenery to my jar, but there are so many items that you can add to make this the perfect accessory for your space. Now you guys, these DIYs were so much fun to create today, and I hope that I have inspired you. Now I do love each one of them, but let me know in the comments which one was your favorite today. Listen, if you love DIYs on a budget, please give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Make sure that you're following She's So Crafty EE on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest for the latest news, sneak peeks, and giveaways. Now, if you do like videos like these and don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button below, or just click on my She's So Crafty logo on your screen and make sure you hit that bell to be notified when the next DIY goes live. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.